Hello, welcome to our home again tonight for another edition here of Facebook Live. And we announced that we were going to have some special guests, but they didn't make it due to, I was just kidding. They're right here. My dad and my mom, Colin and Karen. So
and they drove all the way down from upstate New York.
Yes.
Yesterday.
So, yeah.
Yes.
So
just for this.
Yeah.
Just for
Well, no, not just for this. They're down here to visit us. But, anyways, we are going to make a delicious dinner tonight. What are we having, Kim?
We're having fish sticks and white bean soup, and this is your opportunity, everybody, to ask them questions. Any question you want. That's the whole point tonight.
Yeah. So what we'll do is Kim is making the meal tonight. You just jump in and provide the instructions, and then when you're not talking, I'll extract what I can from our guests here tonight.
Laura, do we have some people on?
We have 31 people.
Make sure it's working. Okay. So tonight I'm going to make fishless sticks from the PlantPure Kitchen Cookbook, and attached to this is a link to the recipe. So I'm going to kind of get started, but if there's questions, we can stop. It's not a long recipe, and we can put the camera on Colin or Karen or Nelson if you have any questions. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use chickpeas tonight. That's the base of the fish sticks. So you're going to put those in a food processor and rinse them really well. Make sure you get all the salt out of them. And then here goes the noise. We're going to pulse it. Oops, not plugged in.
Oh.
Yeah. You don't want to turn it into a paste, but you want to grind it up enough so that it's kind of coarsely ground. And then you want to add artichokes. Artichokes really kind of give it that nice fish flavor. I rinse them really well because they're from a can and they have salt in them. This was one of the lower salt ones. I got the 365 brand.
Actually, it's the nori sheets that give it the fish flavor.
Yeah, but that does too a little bit. Just kind of gives it that nice. And that's it. That's all you need to use your food processor for. And that's kind of what it looks like when you get to that point. Hold on to that for
Sure.
a second.
Have you eaten this before?
Yes, this is delicious.
Here's a comment.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Dr. T. Campbell, please introduce your beautiful wife.
You have to introduce
How
your
many
beautiful
years
wife.
have you guys been
What?
married?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
yeah, you're supposed to introduce your beautiful wife.
They said
Yeah, of some almost 55 years.
55
My
years.
wife Karen. Yeah.
The question is, how have you managed those 55 years with this guy?
It's been exciting. He said if I would marry him, he would make my life very exciting. And that he's done.
Yeah.
How many countries have you guys been to since you've been married? Do you know?
Oh,
You kept track?
I haven't, no.
I've
But it's been a lot.
60 or 70.
Oh my goodness. And they're still going. They're still going.
Yeah,
Just
no,
traveling.
these two have incredible energy. When we did our tour with our film, you guys came along with us, and you know we could barely keep up with you. But what's funny is as soon as they got in the car, every time we finished a screening, within 5 minutes they were both out cold. And yeah, and in fact we got a funny picture of them with their heads tilted back and their mouths wide open.
We call them the fly
sleeping.
catchers.
Yeah, so that's why you have so much energy, because you nap a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
And they exercise a lot too, so it's
Mhm.
good. Okay, so I'm going to put the rest of the ingredients in the chickpea mixture. So we'll start with, this is oats. You can grind it up. I grind it up a little bit, and you can use instant or regular. It doesn't matter. And then some brown rice, a half a cup. I mixed it with quinoa. You don't have to do that either. You can put pretty much just straight rice. And then this is ground mustard and dill, half a teaspoon of each. Put that in. And then this is Old Bay seasoning. But a lot of people have a hard time finding it, but this is what it looks like. It's spicy, it's got salt in it, so you don't need to add any salt to this recipe because there's plenty of it in the Old Bay seasoning. And then, forgot to mention, these are chia seeds and I ground them up, and it's an egg replacer. So I'm going to put a little bit of water in it. This is 2 tablespoons of chia seeds and 5 tablespoons of water. Hopefully it won't go over. And you're going to mix it and it gets thick really fast and goopy. This is an egg replacer. You can use flax meal for that too. So I'm just going to let it sit there and get thick. Do you use that, Karen?
I do.
I have a question.
I use the flaxseed meal.
Do you?
Here's one from Mike Belfi for Papa. I am getting mixed messages on vitamin D supplementation. Dr. Greger says McDougall and, I lost the question. McDougall and Pam Popper say no vitamin D supplements. What do you think?
I don't think it's really necessary. I think the information on vitamin D has been really exaggerated in recent years. There's some corporate interest in that game, I should say. But I can't say at the same time vitamin D has been important especially for some children who live in areas where they don't get enough sunlight. So it's been used that way. But as far as taken on a routine basis, I don't quite buy that. I know there's a tendency in the field to want to push the minimum amount that we have in our blood higher and higher and higher. And there are corporate interests behind that idea. It's not unusual.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't really think of any questions to ask you. Just a very general thought, which is maybe seeing if you can reflect a little bit on your career and the state of the world today. So one question I have for you is, what was the most challenging part of your career? And I know that you've been through lots of challenges. I know it well, but what would you say was the biggest challenge you had to overcome?
Well, in a sense, it's sort of thinking outside the box. Actually, I found that very interesting through the years, and I tend to sort of look at what we're doing, what I taught, and that sort of thing, and oftentimes see things that aren't quite what I thought they were, or other people think they are. So I've kind of stepped outside of the box, and that's been challenging, obviously, and I get a lot of kickback on that. But at the same time, it's actually very exciting. I find that whole idea.
Do you think that times are really changing in terms of physicians and the medical community? Do you think they're promoting this message a little bit more than say 20 years ago?
In many ways, yes. Mm-hmm. In fact, from the inside of this community, it looks kind of exciting. More and more people getting involved. The information is very exciting. But I still have to say, on the outside of this community, amongst the so-called scientific establishment and the people involved in policy and things like that, they are pretty stodgy, and they're very slow to come on board. I find that a little bit bothersome because I was sort of in that community for many years.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think I still am a little bit, but they represent institutional interest.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And institutions are very, very powerful, as you know. And a lot of money involved, and so it's slow to move them.
As you look out over the next few years, where do you see things going?
Well, I'd like to think that the physicians are going to be the first professional group to come on board. In fact, I should say, I usually find it pretty gratifying that the physicians are getting more and more interested. We should know that physicians aren't trained in nutrition. That's problem number one, so they tend not to know very much about this. And they don't get much support from the research community and as far as nutrition is concerned. But on the other hand, I've been lecturing a lot to med schools for the last 4 or 5 years, and I actually find that the physicians, they in the beginning they were kind of quiet when I talked about the things I did, but with a little bit of time they got more and more interested. And the emotion that I saw, I think, first and foremost was sometimes anger.
It goes against all their training.
They were really, a lot of physicians who are getting sort of enlightened in this area, they're angry at the fact that they weren't taught this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's.
Hang on, I'm just going to put this in here. This is nori sheet, and I roasted it a little bit. And it should break up. So I don't want to.
And that gives the fishy
It
flavor.
gives it the fishy flavor. So now you guys can go ahead and talk.
What's the name of this thing?
It's seaweed.
Seaweed,
No,
nori
I
sheet.
know that. I mean that dish.
Fishless sticks. No fish, just a fishy flavor to it.
There's 2 questions
No.
on here. What is the difference between whole and the China study?
That's a good question.
China Study was sort of our first book, and in that case, I was just interested to see if I could write down in a story, if you will, the career I had had, and see if I could make sense out of it. So it was, in a sense, kind of new and different, and an introduction in a way. But Whole was an opportunity what was it, 8 years later, to sort of get into some of the more theoretical, philosophical issues to some extent. That word whole, by the way, is a key word. The book was named that on purpose, simply to emphasize that it's the whole food, really, that makes the difference. We tend to think about foods in terms of how much nutrients they have, this and that, and how many minerals and so forth. And that's the way we have described food over the years, and we studied it that way. That's turned out to be mischievous. Because when we talk about individual nutrients, we get into some difficulties, confusing. So put the whole thing together. That's
You know what? Being in the food world, I get that question a lot about why we didn't do nutrients for the cookbook, and why other cookbooks don't offer the nutrients of a dish. So
I'm
it's
not
good you
very
answered
fond
that
of that.
question.
You know, the nutrient composition of food is it's kind of interesting and helpful to some extent. But what people don't realize is that for any one food, you can describe how much of nutrient X, Y, or Z is in there, maybe. But it may vary by up to 10-fold, depending on when the food is harvested, depending on when and how you prepare it, what else you eat with it. So all that idea of being fixated on numbers is really doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's where a lot of confusion comes into play.
You know, there's a phrase that's been going around the community a lot. You hear it a lot. The idea that the fat you eat is the fat you wear. And there are a lot of people out there who advocating not eating natural sources of fat, whether it's nuts, seeds, avocados, those sorts of things, even soy. And I know we've talked about this before, but you know, I think we've always discussed this as being somewhat similar to when people said that we should drink milk because milk has calcium. So what do you think about that idea that the notion that we should be getting rid of all of our natural fat sources that are plentiful in nature?
I don't agree with that, basically. And in order to answer that question, we have to think about it, what are the forms of fat? I mean, there's fat in food. That's part of the food itself.
Everything has fat.
And I don't have a problem with that, really. Unless if someone is really sick and got some difficulty, you might want to go a little easy on that kind of thing, on the one hand. But even then, the evidence is not that strong. The question about fat that I get quite interested in is the added oil.
The refined oil.
The refined oil, because that is an issue, especially in the United States and other Western countries, because we're using oil presumably of plants. People think that's okay, but not really, because corn oil, Western oil, and those kinds of things, a lot of that oil is what we call omega-6. That's pro-inflammatory. And so we have a balance in our body, a natural balance of omega-6 to omega-3. Omega-6 is pro-inflammatory, or omega-3 is anti-inflammatory, and the body has a nice way of balancing that when we're eating whole food. But what we've done, we've taken oil out, most of which is omega-6, and so instead of having a nice ratio of 2 to 1 or 3 to 1, that's just omega-6 to 3, we're ending up with now with, on average, something like 15 to 1, 20 to 1. So we're actually consuming a diet that is pro-inflammatory. That's the added oil. That's the problem.
Yeah, so that's the refined.
That's the refined.
The refined oil.
Yeah.
So an avocado or a handful of walnuts in the
That's-
morning. That actually may be essential to your diet.
I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being a kid and being out in the woods and nuts were everywhere.
Sure.
And it just doesn't make sense that our ancestors would have gone through the woods and said, hey, I'm not going to eat that delicious, tasty nut because I've determined it has a high fat content.
No.
Right?
Do you want to say what you're doing?
Yeah.
I'm just turning these into patties, and the last batch I made is fish sticks. Oh, you want to grab those? We can share
Yeah.
the fish sticks. Karen and Colin might want to eat them. But I'm just being lazy and in a hurry, so I'm just making patties with these. These are a really nice tight patty compared to the zucchini cakes that I had in the last
Yeah, they
cookbook.
look
The
nice.
fish sticks.
Fish
Oh,
sticks.
you know what I'm going to make with that? I'm going to make a horseradish sauce. Do you want to make it? The mayonnaise is done. So they're going to dip that in a horseradish sauce. All I need you to do is take that mayonnaise and take some horseradish and mix it in that bowl.
How much? All the mayonnaise?
No, just like maybe a third of it.
Like that.
That's good.
Nelson a good cook?
He's a good cook. Last week we did
Hey,
pizza.
my pizza won.
Oh my gosh, I was thinking about that pizza
Yeah.
when I woke up in the morning and I wanted to have it for breakfast.
It was a barbecue
And Laura
pizza.
took it all with her.
Is that about right? Too?
Yeah, it depends on how spicy. You guys like horseradish?
Yeah, I do.
You do? You
Yeah.
like it, Karen?
Not a whole lot.
Okay, so
But that's
So
okay.
I'll stop right
you
there.
don't. Yeah, but you don't even have to. We can make some.
Yeah, just the mayonnaise, so no problem.
I have more questions here.
Okay, go ahead. Ask more questions.
Here's to someone with heart disease wants to know if this will reverse it, and another person wants to know what to eat for fibromyalgia.
On heart disease, we've got really good evidence on that. We can actually reverse heart disease in fairly advanced stages. And I mean, the evidence is powerful. And what I'm talking about is, I've hardly heard of anything in science that's so spectacular, because people with heart disease, if they do this and do it right, the whole thing, stay with it, I'm going to say that there's good data to show that 99%, maybe 100% of the time, people are going to see reversal of their disease. Extremely important. On fibromyalgia, that's a tough one. I have a friend, a medical man, who is presently working on an idea that seems to have some interest. It has to do with the protozoa, you know, in our blood and our intestines and so forth. It's an microorganism we haven't paid too much attention about, but he's discovering that this protozoa thing is going to be something in the future. He's identifying certain protozoa that seem to be high in people with fibromyalgia. And the way to get rid of that, same old solution, what he's finding out, go on a whole food plant-based diet. And the protozoa, nasty things, and the kinds that are there, they tend to disappear. And people get a little better. So it's kind of a new story.
It doesn't have anything to do with inflammation.
Yeah, I mean, inflammation, all these things come together.
Right.
I mean, you
They're
got
all
protozoa, you got
It's all the side effect
inflammation,
of it.
you've got distorted hormone activity, you've got that. So
Mhm.
all that stuff kind of goes south.
You know, the one thing you were talking about before was your book Whole, and of course I've read them both carefully, and I have always, I mean, the China Study was a landmark book, but I've always loved your book Whole, even more so than the China Study, because
Statins.
you're really talking about a way of seeing the world that's not just pertaining to this, but to everything. You know, being able to see the world in its complexity from a more holistic standpoint. And you know, if you look at the world that way, you know, you can see politics differently, you can see economics differently, issues of social justice differently, environmental issues differently. It's just a way of looking at the world, and that's why I love that book so much.
Yeah, I like that concept. The more I think about it, the more
Yeah.
excited I get. We've talked about it, of course, and it's right. I mean, the way I kind of got interested in this was looking at a cell.
Mm-hmm.
A cell is a basic unit of biology. We got 10 to 100 trillion cells in our body, and different cells have different activities. But if you look at the cell, what you see, you actually can't see it. But you know, one cell can sit on the head of a pin.
Mhm.
You can't see it. But we got between 10 to 100 trillion of those in our body. But every cell is just like a universe. It's almost like you're looking at the real universe, the complexity. And it's amazing once you become aware of this whole world. The cell is a world unto itself, and there's infinite complexity. It's all working together.
And that's why
It's
the
amazing.
argument to drink milk was so false for all those years, because you know, when you consume a food, what happens when it goes in your body is it becomes part of that infinite complexity, and it's utilized in ways that we can't even comprehend.
That's right.
So the idea that the milk had calcium, which therefore is good for your bones, turns out to be just the opposite. But it's because we it's just all that complexity, right?
That's right. We've done that for decades.
Mm-hmm.
We've made industries out of that idea. Taken, you see a halfway decent food, what is considered, for a while, milk was considered a good food. You take something out, and then the marketing people come along and say, oh, this is why you should do this is why you should do that, because it's got this, it's got that.
And then people just started taking vitamins and said the heck with the food.
Yeah,
Eating junk
because that
food,
was
vitamins.
that was the magic bullet.
Yep.
That was going to be the magic bullet. But now we know vitamins are not working.
Right.
We've done a lot of research on that.
I've got a question for you. You were talking about physicians before, and we've seen the same thing when we go out and we talk. There are a lot of physicians that are starting to populate the audiences. But how do you feel about the health systems themselves? I was just talking with a fella today who's really passionate about this idea, and he's a physician, but works for a big system, and he was complaining about how this system is so slow to change. And of course, I've seen this in other recent work that I've done too, which I won't go into here. But what are your feelings about health systems and their capacity for change?
I like that question because I've been thinking a lot about it, as you have, and we've been talking about it. But I think the one issue that I think that's being ignored in the whole health system, whether it's in practice, whether it's in clinical practice, or it's in research, or it's policy, whatever, there's one thing that's really missing. It's a core value. It's just the science of nutrition. That may sound a little abstract to some people, what's all that about, but nutrition has more, when you do it right, nutrition has more capability of creating health than all the pills and procedures combined. And so then, if this nutrition is a magical word, which I suggest it is, it's a very complex kind of science, but it really works. The interesting thing is that no medical schools in the country really teach nutrition, number one. So doctors tend not to know. Number two, we've got 60 or so, depending how you count, the medical specialties. There's not one called nutrition. Number three, in our research committee, NIH, the National Institutes of Health, we've got one for heart disease, one for cancer, and so forth. We've had that research structure in this country that's famous worldwide. Of all those different institutes, 28 different institutes, there's not one called nutrition. So here's the bottom line. We don't teach it to doctors. We don't, there's not a medical specialty in their practice. We don't do the research. No wonder.
But
When changing the healthcare system, we're not going to get any place until we introduce that idea.
Okay, let's assume that we've got more nutrition being taught in medical schools, which now you're talking about, of course, having to wait a whole generation to really.
No, it can happen.
But let's assume that we have more education in medical schools. Do you think that the business of healthcare is aligned with this idea, or do you think it's possible to make an argument to the business people in healthcare as to why this is a good idea?
There's too much money involved, Nelson.
Too much money?
You're making too much money. It won't change.
And the way that money,
That's right.
it is, that's absolutely true, it's right to the heart of it, but the way that money is made is based on reductionist science. That's the entire medical system. It's reductionist.
But is there more to it than I think there's more to it than an intellectual shortcoming.
This is not an intellectual view.
No, I think it's more to it, and that's why we put you in the film. And actually at the end of PlantPure Nation, when you make the statement about compassion and doing the right thing and money,
That's right.
I had more people coming up to me at the end of the film with tears in their eyes because of that than anything else. And I think that really touched a lot of people, because I think that it goes to the heart of the issue, which is why don't we do the right thing?
That's right.
Why don't we do the right thing?
That's right.
People don't know, that's what I'm trying to say.
No, I know that. Do you really think that everyone doesn't know?
Well, they don't know the word nutrition. They think food is fairly important, but
I'm not going to say anything. Go ahead.
no, that's why I'm so passionate about this idea of getting.
Well, I have to say that I've been out now trying to make this happen, and I see people who know that don't do anything.
That's right.
So how do you? So what about that?
Do they really know? the whole
Yes.
food plate.
Yes, no, I've
And
come
you
across
don't-
people who are afraid to take a stand within
That's the thing,
within the
they're
organization.
afraid to-
They've got too much at risk.
You're talking about people in the system or
Reputation.
Yeah.
benefiting from the system.
Yeah.
I mean, the dairy has to know what all this milk is doing to children and so forth. Look what the cigarette companies, look what they did.
Right, I
They
agree.
own though. And they don't think about the people, they just think about the big dollar.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I do. The reason I raise this issue is because I agree with you that it has a lot to do with education, but I also think that there's a moral, and I would even argue, and I'm going to use this word loosely because I don't mean in it necessarily a traditional sense, but there's a spiritual aspect to all this and how we live our lives, how we choose to live our lives, and what we think is important. And I think that there are a lot of misplaced priorities and mistaken views on why we're here and the things that we're supposed to do when we're here. So I think it's both.
Well, that
Yes.
circles back to the idea of the holism,
Yeah.
as we've thought. You know, just sort of seeing the whole and having respect for other things and people and places and.
Yeah.
Knowing
know,
that you can't
well,
possibly know everything.
Yeah, that's right, we
Possibly
can't know everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But just respecting what we do have,
Exactly.
you know.
You know, I've always thought to myself that, and I know it's a little bit radical, but if everything fell apart and what we're doing and we lost everything, which, you know, that can always happen. But I've always told Kim, I said, you know, we could always move in a tiny home.
Don't get me
Which-
going on that
Which
one.
actually,
That's a
to me,
pretty-
actually, I kind of want to do that anyways.
One
but,
tiny home for my
but-
kitchen, and then the rest we'll live in the other tiny
But you know,
home.
it really is true that money and things aren't that important, and that's why we put
That's
you at the end
right.
of the film.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was
They're
so
looking
nice
out
when
for
you
the
said
people.
that.
That's what they're supposed to be
It's
doing.
your family.
Yeah,
Right.
I didn't know exactly how you were going to answer that question when I asked that of you for the interview, but you couldn't have answered it better.
Well, that's what I believe.
Hey guys, I want to interrupt you because I have soup to make, so I'll
Oh.
make it really short. But we have an Instant Pot recipe, which is the bean soup, the creamy bean soup. And my mother-in-law just got an Instant Pot. Leanne bought you one for Christmas, right? And I just taught her how to use it. So let's see if she knows how to use it.
Oh,
Okay, come here.
All right, come on around.
So I already cooked the beans in the water, and I cooked them for 50 minutes. I put veg broth in it. The directions are all on the website. Excuse me, Laura. So what's left is, you can go down in that pot and show them. It's just the beans. And now I'm going to add the vegetables. And I didn't put the vegetables in the beginning because they get really mushy. So you want to cook your beans. Do you want to throw the rest of that in there, Karen?
Yeah.
That's celery. She's putting parsley in. Oh, I have to drain those a little bit.
I'll drain that one first.
Potatoes,
Carrots.
a couple of carrots. Is there anything else
And
over
salt
there?
and pepper, it looks
Salt
like.
and pepper. I always do that towards the end. And then I put a cup of water in. I know the directions say 2 cups, so it really depends on how thick you want it. I would say 1 to 2 cups. And we're going to put that lid back on. And you know what, Karen? Sometimes it doesn't go on. When it sings that
There.
song, you know it's gone on, right?
Okay.
And do you remember what you have to
You
do?
have to put it over here to cook.
Close, right?
Close. Then
And
you
then-
have to put the time down here.
Yep.
How long?
We're going to do this one for, gosh, I think it was 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
You got to hit manual.
Oh, that's
Yep.
right.
You got to go
Down.
all the way down because I had it set for 50 when I was cooking the beans. So you got to go down quite a bit. You know, the Instant Pot, when I first got it, it sat in the box for a long time. And I think yours is still sitting in the box. So you just have
It's
to...
out.
It's out? Have
Yeah.
you used it?
One time.
Once? Yeah.
Lisa helped me.
Yeah.
No.
And that's it. You're done.
That's it.
So it
Okay.
takes a little bit of time to come up to pressure. Sometimes it takes 10 or 15 minutes. It's pretty hot. And then it comes down for 6 minutes and we're done. And that's pretty much the recipe.
You
Okay,
just
so-
stir stuff.
That's
You stir stuff in it?
I'll stir it when it's done.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we have to let our 2 guests here sample the fishless sticks with horseradish sauce,
That looks
and
good.
of course I have to do it too. So let's all have one.
I have one.
Yeah, these are so good.
You know, I remember when I was a kid, my mom didn't do it very often because we didn't buy fried food, but do you remember the fried fish sticks when you were a kid?
Mhm.
That's what I was trying to replicate.
Mm.
Boy, this is good, really.
It's a great one.
What's in these things here?
Just shows you.
Yeah.
Put beans in it, chickpeas,
That's what we did before, yeah.
Yeah.
artichokes.
Very
Oh,
good.
it's really good, Laura.
What else can we ask these guys?
Are they asking any questions?
Well, I got some questions, but they're really long, and so I can't see them on the phone.
Mm.
Oh.
You have to look on the computer.
Do you remember what the statin question was? Right offhand?
Somebody said they had, after changing their diet, taken their cholesterol from 345 to 180, but now they can't get it below 180.
I mean,
Should they
cholesterol? Is that what you're saying?
cholesterol?
Mhm.
So he says, should I use statins if I have no history of heart disease?
No. I mean, I first off, I should say, I'm not a practicing physician. I'm only going to speak with respect to the science. But on that point, we know that people cannot get their cholesterol levels, total cholesterol, down much below 170, 180, 190 maybe. And I've had this idea for a long time. In fact, published it about 30 years ago. Just recently had the occasion to sort of confirm it, to be honest about it, or some others did. Namely, people who are not nursed early in life as infants tend to have a greater likelihood of having higher sort of baseline cholesterol levels. I'm one of those people. My cholesterol is around 170, 175 or so. And it's turning out there's really good science on that coming up, and we did that 35 years ago. So if you're somebody that you're doing everything right, you got a cholesterol level in the high hundreds, forget it. Don't even worry about it. No statins, forget it.
So it really has to do with, are you at your optimal level?
Exactly.
And that's different for different people.
That's right.
You know, based on maybe whether you were breastfed as a baby or other things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And can cholesterol vary from day to day? Does it vary quite a
It
bit?
varies somewhat, yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody sort of has their own sort of baseline level, plus or minus 10, maybe, something like that.
Yeah, because
And-
mine's always been the same my whole life.
Someone,
What is yours
Since
is?
you've been plant-based, about 140, give or take 10.
Okay.
it's a question for Grandma. What are your favorite foods?
Oh my.
She likes sweet
That's
things.
my problem. I like all of them.
Yeah, she likes sweet
And I'm not
things.
sure I have a favorite one. Yeah.
She
Every
makes
time,
really good cookies.
yeah, every time we come over, she's always got cookies and stuff like that. You use natural sweeteners like dates and stuff.
Yeah.
But
She doesn't, and I might be wrong on this, but you don't use recipes a lot. You just sort of put things together, don't you?
I do both.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I remember is you just kind of throwing things together and
I do both.
yeah.
yeah, no,
She's a
she's
good cook.
she is a good cook.
Yeah.
I'll always remember those evenings, those family dinners that we had, all sitting around that big table with all that good food that you
I used to cook
made.
for 8 people.
Yeah, that's right. When we had our
Yeah,
Timmy
8
there.
people, 3
Six
people.
of
That's-
them were
that's
boys.
Right.
That's what you cooked for. You made meatloaf too. Or something there, you know.
Yeah, those are back in the days
And
when
we
we
had to
had,
go through a transition.
we had, believe it or not, in the Campbell household, the boys actually fought over hot dogs.
You guys ate hot
So
dogs?
we had hot dogs and stuff like that. But we started making the switch maybe when I was in my mid to late teens, I think. is when
Right.
you started. I remember you coming home from work and talking about this, and you were so excited about it, even though it ran contrary to everything you'd been taught and everything you believed. I remember you coming home and talking about this. It was exciting.
Yes, it's research. When we started finding out you could turn cancer on and off by using protein and stuff like that, but it just started changing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you're the one who pulled us along as a family. You said that many times you just got into the making of the food and here was some information. You changed things around. And
Yeah, it was
You
your
fed
work.
us.
It was your work, dear. Yeah.
So just looking forward, how do you feel about the future and where things are heading and what we have to do to continue getting the word out?
well, for one thing, we've got to make change.
Mhm.
We're not going to survive. I mean, it has environmental consequences. It has healthcare cost consequences. You know, all kinds of things. And so we've got to change. It's that simple. And so if we don't choose to do it ourselves, nature's going to take over and just make things mischievous for us if we don't start behaving the right way.
Yeah.
And we have to change. I guess that's the bottom line. Just simply have to change.
Yeah, actually that leads into a point that I wrote an article for Naked Food magazine that's coming out in the spring issue. And by the way,
That was
if
great.
people haven't Yeah, you've already seen it, but if you haven't signed up for the Naked Food magazine, you should go do that. The subscription's free.
Yeah, it's
But
a
anyways, I
good
wrote an article about this point that it really has become about much more than health. You know, it's about the environment. It's about economics and government and social justice and all this stuff. And there's no other issue that's at the center of everything like this one. And that's why I think what we need to do is we need to create a bigger ideology that is more political in nature, that can kind of bring people together. You know, even people with differing on other opposite sides of the political aisle. Because I think it's possible to define a more unifying ideology around this idea and around the environment and around the idea of community empowerment, bottom-up change. So one of the things we're thinking about doing is at the end of this year or early next year is having a convention, a PlantPure convention, where we would actually pull together, you know, some economists and environmentalists and different people to help do that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, in this sort of tempestuous time, I guess you could say right now, we've got everything so polarized. And I keep thinking, you know, there is one place right, there's a bridge between the left and the right, if you will, put it that way. And that bridge is choosing the food, choosing the right kind of food to eat. And it has come to play. I mean, I spoke to people very far on the right, groups very far on the left, and I get the same enthusiasm from both groups.
Yeah, and I think
It's amazing. It's really nice.
All socioeconomic classes.
And that's what different, exactly.
And then I think there are some larger philosophical arguments that you can make too that help bring people together. That would, because I actually see splinters of truth on both sides.
Sure.
You know, the idea that government can fix society, that's really, I think history's proven that that's a flawed argument. But the idea that we can sort of ignore people and just live as individuals without thinking about the social conditions of others, that's a flawed argument too. So I think if we can combine social activism in a bottom-up way that doesn't flow through government, that's an idea that could bring people together.
We've talked a lot about this, but you know, I think one responsibility the government has, you know, not that it has to control everything, but one responsibility it does have is to simply get out of the way and let this information get out there.
Yes.
The government is working together with the corporate sector,
Yeah.
and basically they're actually doing things proactively to prevent this kind of information to get to the public. I think that's immoral.
It is.
You know, that is horrible, and I think this is one of is the government just simply making information available. Not that they have to take sides, but they simply should be fostering, you know, this kind of conversation. And they don't do that. They're basically too often standing in the way.
Yeah, you're so right. The government has responsibility to tell the truth.
That's right.
and
They got to
provide
tell the
information.
truth.
Yeah.
Especially in my case, I feel it's personal because all of my research over the years came from the public taxpayer, and I find it extremely offensive that here's what we learned, here's what I did with your money if we learned this, and yet the government wants to stand in the way from the public knowing that the taxpayer. Can you just imagine that? That's just downright disgusting.
Yeah.
It's immoral.
It is. It's horrible.
So are we done with it? We're not going to go follow through with the soup. It's still going to cook a while, right?
Well, it's got about 6 minutes left on it. Yeah, I actually already made it, so I can kind of walk you through it. So after it's done cooking, I took an immersion blender like this, and I just went down in here and blended half of it up. And you can blend it completely creamy, or you can blend it part way. You could take half of it out and put it in the Vitamix. You know, however creamy you want it. This is a little thinner than I like it, and I was experimenting with the Instant Pot a little bit, which requires a lot less water. So that last step where you put 2 cups of water in, I would say you could put anywhere between 1 and 2 cups of water. And that's pretty much it for soup.
Okay.
Yeah. Soup
Well,
and fish.
yeah, so this is going to be a good dinner.
Yes.
So,
so Laura, you're not able to see the questions that are coming through.
Well, there's just some that are longer, and I can't see the second half of it.
Oh.
It's cutting it off.
You have a phone call that you have to make, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're going to have to leave. But is there anything more that you want to say to all these wonderful people who come into our house every Thursday night?
Yeah, I mean, I end up
And you
talking-
too, if there's anything you want to say.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, I spend quite a lot of time talking about the problem. At times I get cynical, and it's kind of negative, and I don't like to leave that impression. But my rationale for doing that, because I think if we don't know the problem, we can't find a solution. And having said that, the solution is so exciting. So I mean, we got the dark side that we've been sort of involved in, but at the same time, once we get to understand it, figure out like what you're doing here and other sorts of things, PlantPure Nation thing, you know, figure out and getting involved in that. The future has got to be bright, very positive, very exciting.
And making
Yeah.
it feel normal and easy.
Yeah, making it normal,
Yeah,
just
that-
everyday stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just
Yeah. That's
right.
why we're doing this, so that we show people that it's not hard. It's
Yeah.
easy. Anybody can do it.
Do you want to say anything?
Well, just keep coming every Thursday. They're doing a great job here, so just keep coming.
And not only that, but they live 15, well, they're kind of sort of snowbirds. You come down here a lot in the wintertime. So they're right 15 minutes down the road from us in Durham, so we're planning on getting them here a little bit more.
Although you've been staying in upstate New York, you got to get down here more often.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, we're gonna
Thank you, everyone.
we're gonna let them go, and really appreciate them coming to visit with us tonight. And I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks.
Bye.